I was just watching a video about the Kabbalistic history of the world, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. And it's very, very interesting. The connection between the Christian religion, that the name Jesus in Greek also means fish, and that's why that was a symbol of the early Christians. And so it could have been, like, this thought just whoop went into my mind, that while yes, the name that Jesus is derived from is associated with the deities of that time, but that they could have known his Hebrew name, of course, but that Greek name was a code word for him. And just like from lack of use, the name of God, which this Jesus character emphasized, I have made your name known to them, was lost to the majority of humanity. And so the Messiah's real given name could have been lost. That's pretty wild. So, what struck me about the video is not only is it, yes, the fish, the age of Pisces, and recognized by the Israelite, the modern Jews, as the Messianic age. But he mentioned preparing for the celestial Shabbath, the 1,000 years, the millennial reign. And I thought, that's true. I spend a portion of my day before Shabbat preparing for it. How do I prepare for it? I pre-make foods that don't need cooking. I'm not so extreme that I wouldn't turn on a light, or if it's winter, of course I'm going to turn on heat. The point of Shabbat is not to suffer. It's to be at ease, to be relaxed, to not worry about anything. But to each their own. And the difference is that this man is imagining that AI is being created to take over all the work, so none of us will have to work. He's imagining living life as we do now. Yeah, I have a different perspective because I have explored breatharianism. I know it's real. I've read The Ringing Cedars of Russia, and I know that for people, this is very real. And we have fruitarians. And what I was reminded of yesterday, and a renewed reminding today as I was watching his video, was like one of the coolest experiences for me was when it was just myself and my oldest daughter, and we stayed in a place where there were strawberries growing outside, there were raspberries growing outside, and if she woke up before me, I'd find the door open, and her face with all the berry juice on it, that's what she wanted to do. Breakfast right there, no effort. And so for me, I am not seeing AI, going to restaurants and us. I mean, that's an Elon Musk technological transhumanist utopian vision, which is really dystopia. We don't hear about AI or robots in the Garden of Eden doing all the work. No, it was Adam and Eve that were just managing the growth and the spread of the life on Earth. And also, very curious was that in the Ringing Cedars of Russia, she had said how that the eventuality, the intention for man was to reach a certain maturity, and then each of those families would move to their own planet. And the last book in the series ended when her son created the natural through the planting of trees and herbs and everything, and building, structure in just the right place, discovered how you can create a biological vehicle to get you to your designated planet. And so he went into hiding so that people wouldn't go looking for him to prematurely be building these environments and taking off for planets that aren't ready for them yet, and they're not ready for it. And that it just so happens in Jewish belief, one of the rewards is each righteous person gets 310 planets, and in Christian belief, the chosen ones, the 144,000, will have authority over the angels, the other heavenly beings who happen to be associated with planets. They left their heavenly abode, and the Anunnaki, part of their history is that their planet was dying, so they came to Earth looking for minerals and created, manipulated man to become slaves to mine the gold. So there's just a whole lot of reinforcement on the idea that once man figures out how to nurture and develop a planet in alignment with source and harmony, then they will be given responsibility over more than one planet. And in the so-called New Testament, in the expansion of the Torah with the last renewal, I just lost the thought where I was going. Well, we're going to have 1,000 years to be trained in how to do that. How to be proper husbandmen to planets. So in reality, the Earth has been a training ground and will continue to be our training ground. And if the righteous are to inhabit the earth, or inherit the earth, will they then be in charge of developing future generations to then go off to other planets? Pretty wild. Pretty wild. Because when you're raised in mainstream Christianity, you don't get into any of this. And then it makes sense also. So again, preparing for Shabbat, this is a time of rest. Our Creator doesn't want to come back and be dealing with wars, but wants to come and chill with his people. So it just makes sense that that separation would have to occur, and that those who don't want to be a part of it can have their AI and they can do their work and be stored up, confined and restricted to cities until the wheat, throw the chaff in the fire where they can be transmuting constantly, and then, you know, the release and the final tests after the 1,000 years. That's just like a vague idea. Like, I ain't writing anything down. Like, this is not scripture. But it's just making sense. So, again, the whole point is preparing for this Shabbat. It just makes sense that there's going to be drastic change, the separation of the wheat and the chaff. And again, the observances of the Torah have been a model for this entire time. Like the wheat and the chaff, and then the burning of the bonfires, and then Yahusha, whose code name means fish. Wow. Was enacting all of that with each observance and feast. He was fulfilling it in himself, and now it will be a greater fulfillment. That's pretty wild. So there you have it. So you have two options. You can believe and join up with. You're going to have to accept becoming transhuman to be a part of the AI world that some believe is being put together specifically to do the work for us during this Shabbat. They're not going to let you get away. I mean, unless you have friends in high places. Like, when I think of circumstances that I'm experiencing, like Joseph was sent to serve as a slave in Egypt and put in a position where he could provide sanctuary for his people under the rulership, in subjection to heathens, unbelievers. So you just never know. So yeah, you have the AI path, or you have the fantastical, somewhat new agey you don't need to eat. Breatharianism's a thing. There are people giving birth to children who, at most, during the 9 months, maybe have a few glasses of water here and there. They eat no food. And for them, it's completely absurd that they buy a house and so much of the house is the kitchen, which they never use. So there's two pictures that I'm being exposed to about how this Shabbat, this 1,000-year reign, could work out. I don't know. We shall see. I mean, we know obviously which one I resonate with. So, and the idea of leaving Earth, like they find when they take plants and people up off the Earth far enough that they say they've gone to outer space. I don't know. The disconnection from the Earth creates all kinds of problems with their health and their psychology and things like that. So it's very interesting, because now I was like, the idea of going to another planet disconnected from the Earth, how are we going to maintain our mental health? But now I'm reminded of what I just spoke about, of the ringing cedars of Russia, and how he created out of things like a little chunk of Earth that will travel. And that's another thing that I was thinking about yesterday after I made the video, was in our DNA, we are only like one little marker separated from plants and animals. So we carry in our DNA, and I've heard it said before, every blueprint for everything on Earth. All the planets, plant life, animal life, flora, fauna, everything. So if you were to plant our body on another planet that was prepared and ready to create life, it would use our DNA, and it could grow off that planet absolutely everything on the Earth. And we wouldn't even have to die for that to happen, because all we would need to do is spit. Our DNA is in our spit. Woohoo! Kettle's ready. And I mean, defecation. Of course, we would have seeds, we would have DNA, we'd have complete building blocks for that new planet without ever having to plant physically anything. The things that the human mind would not have been prepared for in generations past, except in a more etheric concept. But the mystics and people of a mystic nature would have already been introduced to a lot of this, but they were all killed off. So there you have it. Preparing for the Millennial Shabbath, the 1,000-year reign. How are we being prepared for it beforehand? And if it is so that the earth is what is going to sustain us, then the Terminator concept cannot come into play. The Matrix movie, that version cannot come into play, because the earth has to be prepared. It has to be ready to sustain the righteous who are going to inherit it. So all of that will have to be cut short, as scripture prophesies, that if it isn't cut short, none of us would survive. So it looks like it's an inevitable reality, but it's not. It could very easily be contained, and especially with all the flooding and the fires, and now we've got earthquakes, and the Yellowstone volcano is showing signs of erupting. It gives off, and I was surprised that my intuition was right on this. When a volcano goes off, it does send out an electromagnetic pulse that can take down electronics and everything like that. Send you right back to the Dark Ages. And supposedly the Dark Ages were created because, or they came to be because a volcano went off, and then all that in the atmosphere shielded the earth from the sun, and so nothing was able to grow, people weren't able to nourish themselves, hence plagues and diseases abounded. So people are going to be separated as the land is taken away from them and separated from one another. So there will be, isolated places where AI is going to come and to play, because they're all set up for that future. They're underground bunkers. There's submarine yachts. Seriously, if you haven't heard about it, these yachts can actually serve as submarines and go under the water. And they probably have entrances to all those underground caves for these submarines, Live on my yacht until, they think they've got it all prepared. But if you've gotten into that vein of conspiracy theory, then you also know what else is waiting under the ground for them in those tunnels that they're going to lock themselves in with. It's weird because I don't run into visually any cryptids, anything like that. I sense presences, but also because we see according to what we project into this reality. How our brain, through our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, interprets the energy that we're seeing is going to be individualized. So where one person sees something very terrifying, others just see like a happy ball of light. It's true. It happens. And I'm reminded that in very ancient languages, there's no word for the color blue. They have all other colors, but no word for the color blue. And when the big ships came from, Spain, England, all of that, the indigenous people of the Americas would go to their shaman. They're like, there are these weird waves out on the ocean. We can't tell what's making it. There's nothing we can see that is causing these weird waves. And so the shaman goes and looks, sees what it is, draws it in the sand for the people, a ship with all its sails, and then the people are able to actually physically see it. They couldn't physically see a ship there. They just saw the waves at the bow of the ship. And then once the shaman drew the ship in the sand for them, then they could see the ship creating the waves. So how much of what we see, we don't see the cause of it. Like, we don't see the spirits of the rain, of the clouds, of the wind. Although we're told that there's the spirit of the wind is a spirit, but we don't see it. Sometimes we'll see faces in the clouds. Or we'll get like a chill, like, oh, this is an evil wind. Or we'll get, nice smells on a breeze that you can't tell where that smell's coming from. So it's a presence is evident in it. So it could be, as I've mentioned in previous videos, when the Tower of Babel incident occurred and the people thought that they killed all of the beings in the heavens, our Creator said, let them continue believing it. These people, remember, they're going to turn into like ape-like people. These ones are going to turn into like elephant-like people. And they're separated from those who, the next generation, who will forget that there were angels, beings, other than man on earth, man from earth. And so we got blinded to that. Our third eye was not able to perceive that, other than in the dream state for most of us. And so, like, we can't even see our own auras, but they're there. It's scientifically proven that we have an aura. But once that revelation comes, once that wormwood, I probably mentioned it before, but Revelation talks about, the star wormwood. And so I looked up wormwood, its uses, as a medicinal thing. And it's for parasites. And, it's one of those antifungal, antibiotic very harsh, bitter things that, if taken in small amounts, will get rid of the things interfering with your health and well-being. So this wormwood, this star called wormwood, comes, takes away all illusion, and there's weeping and gnashing of teeth and suffering. And the reason is, those of us who do not physically see during the day all these other beings, just how full of life our surroundings are, I just got the sense of something sharing space with me. People, and then people who were like atheists, people who thought conspiracy people were nuts, people who had abduction experiences, like everything that they ridiculed, the very foundations of their thinking, of their believing, of their choosing, are going to be pulled out from under them. And for a lot of them, their worst nightmares are going to be physically real right in front of their faces. And that is very scary. But those of us who are entertaining all these other ideas that are like sci-fi and imagination and all of that, all of those of us who are being prepared for this ahead of time, really gifted with it. The crazies, the schizophrenics, we're not going to suffer so much. We're just going to be like, oh boy, that one's real too. Okay, alright. Because I will see through my third eye the other beings that we share space with. When I close my eyes and I lay down to go to sleep, it's like that dream eye automatically starts kicking in as I lose sight of this physical reality. And places like down in New Orleans and Louisiana, it was just everything out of that culture's myths and stories, folk tales. It was very crowded and full of them, just walking amongst the human beings. Like, I'm trying to remember what the name is for this thing. It's got very, very long front legs. There was like a Jim Henson Muppet movie, The Dark Crystal. These big things with these big long front legs and, you know, hunched over with bent back legs to propel them. Those are all walking amidst the people, and people don't see them. They don't know. But could you imagine that wormwood comes, kills the parasites, causing the blindness, the delusion, and people suddenly... When I went through all kinds of material on cult recovery, some people, they don't live through it. They do not live through their belief paradigm being shaken. Their hearts give out on them. They die. So it's a very serious, very traumatic thing when your entire reality is shaken. And that brings me to the survivalist people, the movements, and they tell you that you could have the most rigorously trained military person educated to the hilt in survival in the most extreme circumstances. But if they are not mentally prepared, all of that training is nothing. They will die. And I used to be kind of course, the smarmy days when I had a different personality. I would be like, yeah, you'd have a bunch of single moms surviving and a bunch of gung-ho, uber-fit military dudes dying due to mommy issues. So really, mindset is going to make the difference. So that's something even I still continue to have to work with, because if you put me and you leave me alone in the woods, I'm like, okay, good. I know I need to do this. I know I can do this with this. I know I need to look for this. And I will be overwhelmed, because building a structure, finding water, preparing a fire all at once for one person is a lot. But you put me with other people and I fall apart. Like, oh, I gotta go do paperwork for this. I gotta do this to achieve this. If I just, ask for help, I got to deal with all the people that will refuse to help at first. It's very traumatic. And you start to become paralyzed, because what you need to do, there are too many limitations on it. And when you're in the woods, ignorance can be a limitation. And if you're overwhelmed by limitations, then you get too depressed and your neural pathways stop firing. You can't think right. So wow, I'm being like really, because my life has been, oh, dream I could, and then limitation. I have felt levels of freedom, and then bang, greater limitation than I've ever experienced before. I do have hope, though. I do have hope, because one woman, after I came out of, they were just waiting for me to die in a nursing home. My digestive system had completely shut down. My body refused to digest, even through IV. They put food, feeding tube. My body refused to absorb nutrients and to restore itself. So I came out of that. I don't have family to help. The state had to take care of my kids. None of my family would take my kids in. So they were in foster care. So I had to relearn how to walk, rebuild muscles so that I could, brush my own hair, everything like that, feed myself. And I had to get my children out of foster care within a year from the time that they were taken. Because if you don't get them back in that amount of time, your rights are removed and they're put up for adoption. And it doesn't matter that it wasn't due to, neglect through ignorance, drug addiction. It doesn't, if you're sick and you're looking for help and taking care of your children because physically you can no longer function to be able to do that, they put it as neglect. And so you have to prove you're not a neglectful parent in order to get your children back within a year. I was assigned a caseworker, and she was known to be like the lioness amongst all the lawyers and everybody in the court system. when she came to court, they had to cross their T's and dot their I's, because she would tear them up on behalf of her clients to get their needs met. And after I'd gotten my children back and we had an apartment and resources and everything was working out, she says, I have to confess something to you. She says, when I first met you, you were the first person I really did not think I could do anything for. Everybody in your life who you should have been able to depend on failed you. And I had no idea how to help you create a life for yourself. And you did it. I didn't just jump the hurdles that the state put for me. I said, screw you. I raised the bar and I stepped over. All from a place of complete debilitation. So I could possibly survive having my entire reality, the basis for my entire reality, the rug pulled out from under me. I've had it happen to me many times. So here I thought I had such a cursed life, when in fact, it could have been the greatest blessing I could have ever been given. Don't you hate it when that happens? Like, that thing that you're just bitching and can't get over. Bitching about it, bitch. I'm moaning, oh, save me. I need help. Turns out to be the greatest gift of the entirety of your existence. I do so hate when that happens. But can fully appreciate it, because it's going to be so quickly forgotten. Like when we're having a really good time with friends. Tomorrow no longer exists. There are no worries. And so we will have 1,000 years of just wall breaking, boundary destroying good experiences. This short life will be quickly forgotten. I just need to remind myself of that. So, hopefully I'm reminding you of that and giving you that gift in preparation for the celestial Shabbat. And again, telling you, even though they may not have everything right, and they're kept that way for reasons so that they don't think that they're better than everybody else, and they can show appreciation for the Gentiles, people of the nations that they will be serving as priests and kings over. The knowledge, the historical context that this Jewish teacher that I'm going to post a link to below can bring to our experience. They never lost the name of God. They just only spoke it on certain specific occasions and only to people who could use it maturely and discreetly. And here everybody runs around, oh, we don't know how to spell, we don't know how it's said, we don't. Yes, they do. And I've posted the link to the video that tells you how it is pronounced yesterday. So, happy hunting. Don't be afraid to change beliefs. Don't be afraid. Stepping stones, like that ladder behind me. First you gotta believe one thing to open the door to get to the next step, which is possibly a completely different belief system before you get to a completely different state of being. A whole new platform with more light. Look at that. More natural light up there. Cool. And there's a refrigerator with food, too. But there you go. Yes. Preparing for the 1,000-year reign. It is an interesting perspective to have, looking to put everything happening in the world today in context. Very helpful. I appreciated it.